Welcome back to the shop. February is here, which means it's time for upgrade season in order to get ready for riding season, which for me usually begins in April. The first of these new upgrades are these combination rock sliders and tree kickers from ORB Fabrication. Let me briefly explain what makes this design superior to the typical design of your single-purpose rock sliders or tree kickers. Your typical rock slider has a low-profile design that hugs the body, which offers great protection against like rocks and trail debris, but leaves the rear tires unprotected from trees or rock ledges or anything else that your vehicle might need to squeeze its way around. The Polaris rock sliders I had on here were basically just thin sheets of metal that went down the length of the lower body, and they were more decorative than anything. They did somewhat protect the plastic from getting gouged, but had to take them off numerous times in order to hammer them back into shape. And they are not designed to come off unless you purchased a $60 hardware kit each time. I was able to reuse the hardware, but it was tricky. Your typical tree kickers usually attach on the same part of the body, but instead of hugging the lower part of the rocker panel, they come straight out from the side. They do offer protection for the rear tires and suspension against trees and other objects that may come into contact with the rear tire above the center line, but that design usually doesn't work too well in the rocks or even just in general trail use, as they tend to get hung up on the terrain more than they help, and they generally aren't built to withstand the punishment that the rocks can dish out. Well, fortunately for us, ORB has combined both types of side protection into a clever design that gives you the best of both without having hardly any of the drawbacks of either. On the lower side, you got this nice heavy-duty tube that acts as a rock slider. It hugs the bottom edge of this rocker panel to help the vehicle slide over rocks and obstacles and anything else you might encounter out on the trail. As it goes up the side, it also angles out and then kicks out and back down here on the end and serves as your tree kicker, basically helping your vehicle stay off of anything that could catch the rear tire above the center line that it can't just climb over, which would then potentially damage your rear suspension. Also, naturally coming from ORB, these things are about as tough as they come. Now, as you can see, I've already installed the driver's side. I wanted to see if there were any tips or tricks I discovered to help you when you install yours. Now let's install the passenger side and I'll show you what I found. Now obviously the first step will be, if you have existing tree kickers or rock sliders or even these Polaris low profile decorative steel plates along the side, you'll need to remove those first. The next thing to do will be able to remove these T40 Torx bolts that attach this entire rocker panel to the side of the vehicle. On the 4-seater here, there are 4 of these. On the 2-seater, I imagine there's going to be 3. Probably this one, and one up here. The spacing will be a little different, I'm sure. But either way, its procedure is the same. Well, installation is pretty simple. You've got these fasteners that hook into the existing holes in the frame that Polaris conveniently put here for their version of rock sliders, if you want to call them that. What they do is you take the smooth end and you insert it into the frame, and then there's a self-tapping screw that goes through this existing hole that we just removed the screw from, that holds it in place, keeps it tight against the bar so that as you tighten it up, it holds it in place until the tension from the nut itself pulling on this bolt helps tighten everything down. Now, one thing you will want to do, and this is important especially on this one up here, is it is possible for this thing to go down inside the frame, and good luck getting that out. So this is one of those tips I was talking about. You go ahead and get the nut started on all of these. That way when you drop them in, you ain't got to worry about it falling inside the frame. I'll just go ahead and take all 4 of them, stick them in the holes, or 3 if it's a 2-seater. Hopefully I don't really have to explain that. And next we want to take a 3/8 inch socket here that fits these self-tapping screws that come with the kit. We're going to go ahead and get it started into the hole that we took the other screws out of. Now there is a hole in this bolt that these go in, and I know what you're thinking, or you should be thinking, how in the world am I going to line that up when I can't see it? Well, I found a trick for that. The self-tapping end actually will go inside this hole, so you're not actually cutting the hole into here, you're just cutting threads. So the easiest way to do this is to go ahead and get the screw started into the hole. Just go kind of a short ways in, and then we'll take the fastener here and pull it all the way up against the tube toward the bottom. And as you rotate it up, you can feel it actually hit that screw. And now we're going to rotate it out toward the center of the tube and wiggle it around until you actually feel it slide up on the end of the screw. And I felt it slide on there, so I know that it's in place, and I'll just hold it while I run this in. As you can see, they are attached. Now you don't want to wrench this down as tight as it can go. That's not really its purpose. You do want to snug it up, but you want this to have a little bit of wiggle. Because if it does not, you're going to have a harder time getting the slider in place. Alright, we're pretty snug there. It's just got a little bit of wiggle room. And we'll just do this to the other three. Same way. This thing is quite large and a little heavy, as you would expect from something this beefy, but this would be a lot easier with two people. But I just start in the back and just work my way forward. Second bolt, third bolt, and finally, fourth bolt. Alright, I forgot one of my own tricks. What we'll do is go ahead and stick these on as we go. Get that one started. Leave it loose so this thing has plenty of wiggle room. Get this next one on. You can't actually turn it loose now, which makes things easier. Go to the third one and fourth one. Slide them on. Yeah, see? It stayed back there. Much easier. The final step is just tighten these bolts down. Got a 7/8 inch socket here. Now you can do this with you can't really get a wrench in on this one, so you're gonna have to use a socket. You can use a ratchet. I'm gonna use my impact here just to get them tightened up a bit, and then I'll go back and tighten them by hand just to get a good feel for it, make sure I'm not getting too tight. There's no real need to just hammer these things down as far as they'll go. All you'll do is crush the plastic underneath, and it'll crack and give out and eventually crumble and fall out, and then this thing will be loose, and then you have to tighten it back up. And the main strength of this unit is just the thickness of the bolts themselves and the shear force. You're not going to have anything literally like pulling on it, trying to pull it off of the vehicle. So you don't need it extremely tight. I've got the pressure on this impact turned down, so it's not able to just hammer them all the way down like I was just talking about. So I'm just going to use this to run these bolts up snug one at a time. Also, while I'm talking about that, do not just take one of them down as tight as it can possibly go and then move on to the next one. You want to do them like you would lug nuts on a wheel. You do them a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, back and forth. Starting from one end, going to the next, and just do them a little at a time as you go. Alright, we'll move back to this one and snug it a little more. Now there's not enough room to get a monstrous 7/8 inch socket in here to get on this nut on this end. So you're gonna have to take your open end, or box end if you can get it on there, but this works fine too. And just tighten this one up by hand, unfortunately. Now in my estimation, they should be tight enough when you can use a standard 1/2 inch drive ratchet and tighten them down by hand about as tight as you can get them without really bouncing on it or anything silly like that. So that when I can feel it suddenly has run out of compression room and is really beginning to tighten up, and that's where I'm going to leave them. After my next ride, I will check the tightness of them again. May have to do this a few times until they settle in properly. And just like before, I'll come back down here and just keep doing this until they all feel right about where I want them. Alright, I'm at that point where it feels like it has run out of room to squeeze. Now it's just offering a lot of resistance, so I just tighten it about as much as I can with this wrench before it begins to hurt pushing on it. Alright, one more check and we'll call that done. If you've ever seen any of my how-to videos, you know how much I love my torque wrench, and you may be wondering why I'm not using it on this. Well, it's because of this wrench. I can't get a torque wrench down here, so what's the point in trying to use it on the other three if you can't do it on this one as well? So, giving it the old by hand feel, they all feel pretty even. So, I believe these things are installed. Alright, I got that one tightened down where I want it, and with the other one already in place, this project is complete. I wish I would have had these at Hatfield back in October. I might still have that original fender that was back on this side. Don't know how many of you guys saw that, but I actually lost that fender to a tree up there in the mountains at Hatfield McCoy. Had I had these on there, that tree would just walk right down the side of this bar and the machine would have just squeezed right past it, and I wouldn't have had a scratch except maybe a little bit of this powder coat, but hey, that's what they're for. I want to give a big thanks to ORB for making awesome products for these machines. Really, they could not be a better design for general side protection, for trail riding, rock use, and the like. If you're familiar with this machine or some of my other how-to videos or my ride videos, you probably already know that this is not the only ORB part that I have on here. I've got their A-arms front and rear. One of the first upgrades I did on here, and they have held up perfectly. There's not a dent in any one of them, in all the rocks and trails and roots and logs and stumps I've run over. The only thing they've lost is a little bit of powder coating, but that's an easy fix. So thanks for watching. Hopefully I've given you enough information so you can see why you would need these over the other two styles that just give you the best of just one option, but these truly give you the best of both. I won't really get a chance to try them out until April when I get back out into the mountains, but I'm anxious to see how well they work versus them little decorative side plates I had on here. So once again, thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next video.